wondering why I've called for you. The Koda ignore our voices. They cannot speak to ox, eagle, or wolverine. But Bram can.
Why me?
You are a Norn of prophecy, but you are not yet true Norn. Take the lost spirit's power. Use it against Drakkar. Only then will you find a place for my spirit within your own.
Hi, Tyria, and welcome to Guild Chat. I'm your host, Ruby, and we are back after a really long break. We haven't been around since November. We had holiday break and all that good stuff, so we are back and ready to talk about episode 2, Shadow in the Ice, which is coming to you guys next week. We are going to give you a little sneak peek, though, through talking to some of the people who worked on it. We're not going to spoil things for you, but we are going to give you a little preview of what to expect and what to get ready for. So let's jump in and talk to some of the developers behind the episode. Why don't you guys... Should we come back to you? Are you two? Okay.
We just put it on the line.
She's sleeping.
We don't want to. We don't want to wake the quaggan. This is going to be our show, man.
All right.
I don't know if you weren't expecting.
How to put to sleep your plush quaggan.
I don't know if you weren't expecting silliness, but you have
I've
been
been
here
in these
for
before.
half a minute. Yeah.
You chose the wrong people if you didn't want silliness.
I chose exactly the right people. So why don't we have you all introduce yourselves, talk about what you do here at ArenaNet, what team you're on, and what that team does.
Starting with me, I'm guessing.
Starting with Nick.
Okay.
And you have to introduce the quaggan now, too.
All right. Hi, I'm Nick, and do we have a name for this quaggan?
Steve.
No.
Okay. Well, hi.
Wait,
My
that
name
name is
Nick,
baggage.
and I'm a game designer here at ArenaNet on the episode 2 team. And what I worked on was a lot of the open world content with primary focus on the Trials of Koda, which we're going to touch on a little bit today, and the Raven Mastery stuff / some open world puzzles, all that jazz.
All right.
What?
What did you say?
And all that jazz.
I thought you said I apologize. I was like, no. Oh my gosh.
I'm not sorry for the things I create.
Hi, I'm Lee, the visual effects lead on Guild Wars 2. And my team was responsible for all the cool visual effects that you see or will see in this coming episode.
Awesome.
For now, imagine them.
From now, yeah, imagine.
Yeah. I mean, some of them were in the trailer. I'm Connor. I was the team lead on this episode. That meant I had a hand in basically a lot of different things, figuring out how everything should feel tonally and what our overall goals were, and making sure we were meeting them.
Okay.
So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I've seen a whole bunch of the stuff. You all have seen it through the trailers and some of the stuff that we've showed off between the past couple weeks and now. And also, it is National Compliment Day.
Oh.
So I will tell you now that everything looks amazing. You guys are doing fantastic work, and you're wonderful, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy
You're
National
amazing as well.
Compliment Day. We are going to be taking questions at the end of today's show. So if you have questions, we're not going to spoil the stuff that we're not talking about. But if you have questions about some of the work that the guys are doing that we talk about today, feel free to put them in chat, and we will try to get to some of them at the end of today's show. So, All right. Why don't we go ahead and start with, you mentioned the Trials of Koda.
Yeah.
Let's not spoil those too much, but I know that you want to make sure people give some feedback on that once they're in there.
Yeah. So, we are trying something new with the Trials of Koda, where should I talk a little bit kind of about how what they are?
A little bit.
Okay. So the Trials of Koda are these kind of additional optional objectives that are going to be showing up around a lot of the events in the map. And when you complete them, if you succeed that event, you will actually get a chance to kick off another more difficult and higher scaling style of events that are themed around kind of a continuation of whatever event they were attached to.
Sequel event.
Yeah, like a sequel event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe keep an eye out for those. And those are random, right? It's not
Yes.
do A, B, C, and you.
Yeah, no. So the way that they will show up on different types of events in random parts of the map, and there will only ever be one up on a map at a time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Those sound like they're going to be fun. I'm kind of looking forward to trying those.
Hope so. Yeah. We definitely are hoping that everybody likes them, and we're looking forward to y'all's feedback, both
All right.
positive and negative.
Okay. Constructive criticism.
Is important. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to talk a little bit about the Raven Masteries?
Yeah. So as you all have probably seen in episode 1, we have the Catalyst Mastery System and also the Raven Mastery System. And since we are extending the map of Bajor Marshes in episode 2, we also wanted to take some time to be able to extend those masteries. So as you've seen in the trailer, we have this new thing called Raven Gates. And what those are basically, they're a type of in-world portal that when you have the mastery trained, you can use to get to different parts of the map that you usually wouldn't be able to reach otherwise. And or more easily access those areas that you wouldn't be able to otherwise. And what's really cool about episode 2 specifically is that a lot of these ones actually take you to a bunch of new puzzle areas that we've designed as a kind of continuation / extension / evolution of the light puzzles that you saw in episode 1. So definitely, we wanted to reward people who take the time to explore and look at every single nook and cranny of the episode. So we're looking forward to seeing what everybody thinks about these new things. Yeah.
No, it's just worth noting that one of the things that's kind of neat about this episode is it's an extension of a map that we've released, right? So we were able to go and add new events, new achievements, the Trials of Koda to events that existed before, and also these puzzles that are some of them are hidden on the episode 1 side of the map. So it's not just releasing new content; it's also was an opportunity to go back and update some of the content that existed and add new neat things to find
In the first half of the map.
Yeah.
So you did mention the map extension.
Yeah.
And do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, so in the first half of the map, in episode 1, it was 2 months ago, but things happened, but you did not actually solve the main problem.
I'm going to go ahead and open the spoiler doors for episode 1.
Okay.
Spoil episode 1. You've had 2 months. If you haven't gotten to play episode 1, go ahead and log in and get it free now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a good point. You have 4 days left to get it for free.
Only 4 days.
Yeah. So basically what happens is in our episode, people are pushing west to try to hunt down the source of the whispers, because what you thought was the source of the whispers didn't pan out. They're still happening. And so our map is really about you're getting really close to whatever is actually causing these. Things are kind of escalating in that area. You're also going from the first half was kind of more vigil oriented. This is where all the Kodan live. So a lot of how Kodan are living and what are they getting up to? How are they coping with existing in this area that is let's say a little contaminated, and then finally we showed in the trailer. There's also there's some old Norn shrines and spirits of the wild who haven't been seen in a while, and like what are they up to? What have they been up to? Those are kind of the three main elements that make up the cocktail of our episode. And I think it makes something that's really interesting tonally, and I really like a lot of the stuff that we've done. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to playing the extended map and going back and seeing what's new on the map that we have now. So, you mentioned the catalyst chests. Nick, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I don't know if that was actually in the trailer, but hey, previews. We
Exactly.
have coming with the episode is an extension of the Catalyst Masteries as well. Each of them will have a new Tier 3 version that you can unlock through the Mastery system. And what they will grant you is, a bit more power within your core Catalyst skills. And on top of that, our rewards team really wanted to take the time and this opportunity to be able to try out something new around the actual reward side of the Catalyst chests. So we're going to be adding a new T3 chest we're kind of using as an end cap reward across a lot of the content, both in episode 2, and also we're going to be we've retrofitted some of it in episode 1 content as well. And basically what happens with the T3 chests is that it doesn't matter what tier of the mastery you have, as long as you have at least tier 1 unlocked, you'll be able to open the tier 3 chests. But the way that it works out is that the chests actually will give you different rewards depending on what tier you have. So the higher of a tier that you have in that mastery, the better rewards you're going to get for it. But also, if you only have tier 1, you can still look at a tier 3 chest and be like, I can open that. So
It's still something for you.
Yeah, it's still something for you.
So nobody's just completely left out as they're working toward that.
Yeah.
Yes, except if you do not have at least tier 1 of the mastery trained, because, you have there's still a magic barrier around it, and you still need to break the barrier to some capacity.
But we're hoping you do.
Yeah.
But if not, you should get that.
Yes.
All right, so Lee, I want to talk about, we showed off Drakkar
Yes.
in the trailer, and it looks kind of awesome.
Yes.
It was not easy to do that.
It was not. The entire Drakkar encounter was a challenge from many angles.
So why don't you start, can you talk a little bit about what your team does and the work that they're responsible for,
Sure.
to give us a little background?
Yeah, so the visual effects team, we're kind of known as like the smoke and mirrors team.
Okay.
We take the sort of abstract, designed...
We make the effects for smokes and mirrors.
We-
So.
yeah, basically, exactly.
Literally and metaphorically.
Yeah, we take the abstract requests that we get from design, and we have to come up with some really cool visual that achieves the design requirement. And the Drakkar encounter had a lot of various design requirements, some easy and straightforward, and some on the surface looked easy and straightforward, but it ended up being incredibly complicated, taking 3 of our guys basically 6 or 8 weeks full on to figure out.
So why don't we take a quick look at the other Drakkar video so we can kind of get some context for what you're talking about?
Yes, totally.
Okay, let's take a peek. Okay, simple shadow, no big deal.
Yeah, that shadow looks great, right? And it looks really simple. It's a shadow behind some ice. The reality is that simple request from design was our big challenge for this episode, our main big challenge. So how do we get a shadow that is supposed to convey the depth of a creature to show up behind this wall of ice? And that took some really tricky shader logic from one of my VFX artists, Nick Azure, to come up with and develop a new ice shader that supported, that simulated complex depth and complex animation, while at the same time giving us the flexibility to control the shadow based on the needs of gameplay.
So wait,
there's
you made a whole new shader for this?
We made several new shaders, but yes, we made one new shader specifically for the ice that you see, the walls that you see throughout the episode. And it looks on the surface like traditional ice, but there's a lot of really complex shader logic and math and a bunch of trial and error that went into developing it to make the shadow look as convincing as it does.
Really?
Yes. when we originally planned this or were pitching this, we weren't entirely certain how detailed we would be able to get with the shadow.
Really?
Our first efforts were, we tried to set an expectation that this is going to be good, but we aren't fully sure how we're going to get there yet. And so over the course of the development of the shader, we went from a sort of smoky spherical shadow shape that had the ability to scale up and scale down and become more opaque or more transparent to sort of simulate Drakkar moving forward and backwards through the depth of the walls. But that wasn't quite enough to sell it for us. So we went back to the drawing board to figure out how do we really encapsulate the silhouette of Drakkar behind this ice. We only spent maybe, I don't know, 4 weeks just on that one aspect alone of going from the simple sphere shadow to the final shadow that we see. And it took a number of tricks that we use in the game world and that we sort of leveraged from the cinema world.
Yeah.
I love that you say we only spent 4 weeks on that shadow, and that sounds like so much to me.
Yes.
For what comes, because something that I've noticed is that if you're not familiar with this sort of work, like, and I've learned a lot more talking to you guys, but if you're not familiar with that sort of work, there's a tendency for the brain to want to equate it to a real world thing. Mm-hmm. And you're like, well,
you just
yeah,
cast a shadow on the wall.
It's, or like, yeah, it's just this shadow coming behind ice. How could that take 4 weeks? And that sounds wildly complicated to me. I'm like, what do you mean only?
Well, shadows are complicated things to mimic in real life.
Yeah.
There's a lot of play with light and atmospherics, and in this case, we had parallax and depth to deal with as well. And so we knew we had to have a shadow eventually that captured this essence of depth, so that it looked like it was not only just scrolling across the wall, but it felt like a three-dimensional shadow was being cast on this wall, and that had a lifelike movement that you would expect to see a big creature to have. And that was a challenge, but it ultimately turned out, I think, really, really well.
Yeah, I mean, we were throwing around a bunch of names for this episode at the time when they were working on this. And then I think the first footage of Drakkar, like, swimming through ice, like, came through, and we're like, we should call it Shadow in the Ice. Because it just is a really cool visual that is really distinct for this episode.
I remember when I first looked at it, I was mostly just dumbfounded at the fact that, like, if you take a close look at it, depending, like, there's different visual depth to the ice because of the way that it's actually laid out, and, like, it will certain parts of the shadow will actually fade out as you get closer to, like, the thicker parts of the ice, and I was just like, holy junk, that is insane.
That wavering as it goes through.
And that's that complex shader logic that we're talking about that's really selling that. If you were to look at the raw animation that we developed for this shadow, that animation that is drawing the shadow on the wall is really simple and really basic. If an animator saw it, they'd be like, wow, that's stupidly simple. But you get a lot of that flow and movement because we're projecting it against a surface that has depth built into the geometry, and then we're simulating further depth and play with how that shadow would interact with the simulated depth on top of the physical depth that is modeled into it. It is a really fun challenge that it really combined all of the unique talents of my visual effects team.
Wow, they did a really good job. It's interesting to hear about the complexity behind it.
Yeah.
Are you able to talk a little bit about that trial and error? Like, what were some of the things that you bumped into that maybe you thought were going to work that didn't quite turn out right?
Ooh, yeah. Well, as soon as we started showing the early conceptualizations for this material, like I was saying earlier, we set the expectations kind of low, and that we weren't sure if we would get the final shadow look the way that we wanted. So the first thing that we ran into showing the first iteration to the dev team was with the simple sphere that we had made.
Yeah.
Even though it was a sphere, it still had smoky, tendrily moving elements, and we were really inspired by a couple of ghost-like movies that drove that look, but it wasn't hitting that visual bar that we all had hoped that we would see. And so it took us going back to kind of relook at how we were developing the shader and what new controls we may have needed to add to it to get us that flexibility. So this is a shader that's based on flipbooks, and we only have a certain number of frames to use in a flip book, and how do we get a shadow that can do everything that we needed to do gameplay-wise, but only have about 64 frames of animation to do it in.
Interesting.
That was a big trial and error effort, and that's where we started leveraging some of the. At that point, we realized we could leverage some cinema techniques and take the simple animation that we made for Drakkar and render out depth maps. That then, with those depth maps, they're sort of grayscale gradient type images. And the more white something is on this image, the closer it is to the camera. And the more it trails off into gray or black, the further it is away from the camera.
Okay.
And so once we realized we could leverage this depth map rendering technique to generate the shadow that looked like Drakkar, that was the moment where everything clicked and we realized, holy crap, this is actually going to be the thing that sells this moment.
Nice.
Yeah.
People are smart.
Yeah, there's a lot. My team
I
is
knew
incredibly smart, and a lot of this math is even above my head a bit. So it's great to have a team that is diverse in skills. Our strong shader guy
They
did
come
the
in
work.
with different things.
Yeah.
And
Like if it was just up to me and making the shader, it's a good thing we have a diverse team.
For sure.
Well, you're part of that team, so
Yes.
good work
Well,
on that.
my primary responsibility is to ensure that we're on the right track and that the visual bar is being maintained. And, I make sure that I build our team that has the talents that we need to achieve the goals that you guys have.
well, and you have Joko, so
Joko, yes. Praise Joko.
thank you. Thank you.
were we going to talk about these at some point?
I honestly, I
We
got to
just-
playing with it, and yeah, we have our Funko Pops, and we're all very excited about it.
I mean, Ridlock speaks to me
Do we
sometimes.
want to do like a close-up of each one or something like that?
We can if we want to. Sure.
Just like hand each one to Ruby and be like,
Oh,
this
okay.
is Ulrine.
Is this what we're doing? Okay. I'm sorry. I'm unprepared.
This is the
I-
Ulrine Pop. As you can see,
Precious.
she is adorable and nice.
We're taking a Funko Pop break.
I'm sure
So
Joko
I'm
feels
comfortable with
differently.
Probably.
He does.
Does this work? Here she is.
I think it does, yeah.
And her. There's the back of her head.
I really like these.
I do too.
They're kind of, I don't know, they're insanely detailed.
we're just doing this now.
I mean, like, why not?
Okay,
right?
sure.
I'm
What
they
the
want
heck?
the same.
Okay, who do we have
Joko.
All right, next up.
next? Joko. I will be corrupted. I actually kind of dig how we did Joko. Okay, there. I'm positioning them over the Guild Chat logo.
Joko's very shiny, which I think
Joko's
makes a
very
huge
shiny.
difference.
Yeah.
I don't. Okay, and there's back.
His animations in game are
Also,
also,
Ruby, don't forget to praise him.
Praise
Yes.
Joko. Yay. Raise
as you
Joko.
show them his
Raise Joko.
backside.
Or AZE. I did.
The weight of Ritlock
his,
in your
his
hands.
little headscarf is great.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
And then last but not
Okay,
least,
oh no, I just knocked him over.
No, you killed Joko.
Again.
you put him too
Okay,
close to Irene,
I'm gonna
she's very
need.
hungry again.
Yeah, I put him next to Irene. Now he's being eaten. All right, Connor, I'm going to need you to voice this for me.
I'm Ritlock. I have a sword. I do sword things.
That was excellent.
This is the back of Ritlock.
Logan, why'd you run away?
Thank you.
I hate you.
Wow,
Maybe. Never mind.
that was a lot all of a sudden. But yes, here's I don't know who had this.
Snargle
but-
Gold Claw novels are not canon.
Oh, Joko.
Yeah, these are our Funko Pops, which we've been sitting here playing with, and I just forgot because I was fidgeting. Yeah, these are our Funko Pops. Anywhere that you get your Funko Pops, and they come with all of them come with the code for the little in-game version of the Funko Pop, which
Which
looks amazing.
They all have great animations.
Yeah, they did a really good job on those. So,
I need to get little Joko for my Joko character.
Totally.
oh, that's right. You have
Yeah, I have Paloma Joko. Anyway.
Okay, that was I forgot which of you said we should talk about these, but now we did. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Back to the episode.
Drakkar, back to Drakkar.
Sure, yes.
So also, and that was our Funko Pop break. So I wanted to actually talk about the animation of Drakkar bursting out of the ice.
Okay.
Because that looked fantastic also. Was that as much of a challenge, or was that just a different kind of a challenge?
It was a different kind of challenge. This one we had a little bit of a head start on from the effects standpoint, because we were able to leverage a foundation of effects that we built for episode 1 as the burst out effect, and then modify it and tweak it and recolor it a bit to include more Drakkar elements and themes to it. So it gets a little bit more gooey and a little bit more magical and a lot more snow and icy. But the challenge was timing that effect to the animation so that they played seamlessly together and it looked like one fluid event.
Yeah.
And that took careful communication back and forth with not only the animators but also the designers hooking it up.
Okay. I'm thinking about you talking about how it's your job to take the abstract requests.
Yeah.
And then just like, can you make it more gooey?
Yeah, well, and that came out as the creature model evolved, because the first time we saw Drakkar was in Guild Wars 1 from a far away distance, right? Like you saw him frozen in the ice. So what we had the challenge, or the creature team had the challenge of sort of reimagining what Drakkar looks like now.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they leveraged was goo and decay and sort of playing to that. So from a visual effects standpoint, we latched onto that as a way to help our overall ice theme effects stand out against an ice boss in an ice world with ice skills. So that goo really helped give us some contrast and life.
Ice boss in an ice world.
Yeah.
We need that in a world guy.
Yeah.
In a world.
It is an interesting combination because you have this death and decay, and I'm going to have to say gooey because there's
Yep.
really no way
There's
around it.
no better way, yeah.
In this whole frozen in a world, in the frozen ice boss world, and that is a kind of a weird combination that you had to work with.
It was really weird, and that was a challenge because we're as artists we're trained to think about color theory and color balance and usually we're not going to just try to make a scenario where everything is going to be blue and white because when everything looks the same, nothing stands out. And so that was sort of our secondary challenge with this episode.
I don't know. For some stupid reason, I thought of some twisted version of Syndrome being when everything's icy, nothing is.
Exactly. Yes.
And Drakkar's over here like, hang on, I got this.
Yeah. That's
Which also doesn't make sense. It's still icy, but whatever.
I mean, it's a great analogy.
But it doesn't pop.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't see it. You don't notice it if it just maintained that
Sure,
look.
yeah.
And that goo, well, goo's kind of fun to play with anyways. It's gross and it gives it a fun, unique texture. And that gave us the darks and the black contrast that we needed to have the effects really pop off against that blue and white background.
Yeah, and it really, really does.
Yes.
So yeah, Drakkar's got this.
Oh yeah, it's a fun encounter, and it is a visual spectacle that took really all of the art teams and all the design teams working together from the very first kickoff meeting. We realized the importance that we have to collaborate and we have to be able to respond dynamically in real time to how this event was unfolding in front of us as we developed it.
This is the first time we've done a world boss in a while.
Yeah.
We did the Shatterer, but that was kind of a remix of the Death Branded Shatterer, but that was a remix of one we'd done, so we weren't really working from scratch. And the process of doing that and building that out, and it's going to be an exciting chunk of content.
It is.
And it's only because everyone worked together super closely.
It's got a really nice flow to the entire experience, from the moment you see the first shadow to the final moment of that episode. It flows really well together, and it's because of all the hard work of the artists and the designers coming together to.
Yeah, we should probably Cameron Rich is the main designer on Drakkar.
Yeah, Cameron's going to be out. We're going to talk about the episode a lot more in depth on Guild Chat next Friday after
When the episode's
everything's
actually out, and we're
and we don't have to sit here and be like, okay, I can't spoil
So the things that
anything.
happen, they're neat.
Yeah.
There's some stuff with Coden. They do
And-
things.
Yeah, and there's ice.
Oh
there's-
yeah, and there's ice.
Yeah.
Well, can we say that though? Is there ice? Are
There's
we
no
allowed to
ice.
say that?
Actually, sorry,
Yeah.
I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't let them know that this side of the map
Everything
is like a lava field where there's and it's actually
no.
all cotton candy.
You ruined
Spoiler alert.
Look,
So we're going to go ahead and we'll take a few questions. We have some time.
cotton candy land.
While we're getting that set, why don't you guys, is there anything else that you guys want to let people know about next Tuesday without spoiling too much? Don't talk about the lava field.
If you do not need to also own episode 1 to experience this map, if I'm
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
So don't worry if you didn't get a chance to unlock episode 1 before it releases. As long as you come in during episode 2, you'll still have access to the map. You just will not have access to the storyline.
That's a
I
good
think
point.
it's something to point out. Yeah. Also, please make sure to turn your audio on because our
Yes.
audio team knocked
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, my
of
gosh.
the
Yes.
park. It is
Definitely.
all absolutely amazing and beautiful, and just like the ambiance that's going on around you is insane.
Yeah, it is so good.
Yeah, I mean, it ties the visuals and the gameplay together.
Yeah.
It is key without it.
Okay. All right. I will let you guys, if you see a question you can answer, I will let you guys jump on that. Just make sure you read the questions because they can't see that.
I can answer, are we continuing the spooky themes? The answer is yes.
The answer is-
I'm not going to say much more about that, but
Okay.
there's some, I think we did some fun iteration on that.
Awesome.
We definitely had we had fun with it, and I'm trying to figure out the right words to say without giving things away. We think people are going to like it, and it's going to create some fun experiences when people are playing together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is this Drakkar boss the same dragon we saw under the ice in Guild Wars 1? Yes. Does look different, and there is some mild, there is some explanation for that.
Yes.
But yeah, it's the same creature that has been around for forever.
Do we want to touch on the Raven armor set stuff?
Which one?
The second to last one?
Yeah, is the armor set based on achievements or RNG?
It's both, right?
Yeah,
It's spread out throughout all the content.
Yeah, so there are some that can be unlocked through just playing through the game, and some of them are drop chances from specific parts of the content within this episode.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that's kind of nice is we talked about, because we had an opportunity to update all the episode 1 stuff, we can really, there's just a lot of content to hook into.
Yeah.
How can you get Drakkar swim in a frozen lake?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah,
How can you get Drakkar to swim in a frozen lake, which have also frozen tunnels in it, and is the lake fully frozen? How is he doing this? It's a really great question.
We're not answering any of that, but it is a good question.
It is great. Smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
Is
Drakkar is
he-
actually a cat because it's both a liquid and a solid at the same time.
You're not
Yeah.
wrong. I have 2 cats and you're not wrong.
I feel
So
like
does that mean I can get Drakkar to show up in my home instance if I
feed him the right
feed
things.
him?
Sure. Good
If
luck
you
figuring out
save
what to feed
so
it.
many of the dead birds that show up in your home instance, that's not true. That is a lie.
Yeah,
So-
that's all not canon.
Yeah. Let's
Showing
see.
distance to the character.
Relative size compared to the shadow effect. Was
Yeah.
the shadow showing distance to the character in the trailer?
The shadow is showing distance from the edge of the wall, so you might see that the shadow looks maybe a little bit smaller than Drakkar does, sticking out, and that is because we played with the idea of how close do we want Drakkar to be to that edge of that wall, and we decided to have when he's moving through the walls, we wanted to have a bit of distance so that way we can show off the full silhouette of his shadow. If he was any larger, you would only see maybe half of it at any given time.
The third and fourth questions are spoilers, and we cannot answer those.
Yeah, I can answer.
So-
I can answer the 5th though.
Okay.
How map completion is going to work for players who already explored the current version of the map, which is we've got another thing near all of the interact points. So if you've already gotten map completion, you can. There's basically another thing that's equivalent that you can do both of them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what I'll add on to that is that it will still be an equal amount of investment for both people who have already done map complete and then go to those things, and for people who are doing it all at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You're not going to be working any harder if you haven't done it than you would for getting normal map completion and these and this additional content.
Let's see. Hold on. Not really a question, but I love Jormeg whispering to the player in Jorah March's map. Yeah, it's pretty fun.
I love it and hate it. It's so terrifying.
The RP community has definitely had a lot of fun with it, and I think that's going to escalate with this episode. But yeah.
The fourth question, Connor, you touched on that a little bit.
Yeah, so the question is, the new episode will expand the map, but will it also improve alter already existing content? We added achievements to some content that wasn't added to. I'll just say we added some achievements to the strike missions. We did some other things. We added again the Trials of Koda, fire off of existing events. Then some of those are in the episode 1. So like there are a number of things that we've touched. We didn't touch everything, but it was an opportunity for us to go back and look at some of those things.
Okay. I'm going to take the third question. How hard is the Drakkar encounter? I am so excited to hear your answer to that question in 4 days.
Exactly.
Because if you ask, we've all played it, if you ask each of us that question, you're going to get a different answer from all 4 of us. So let me know after you play it. Because I want to hear what you think.
To touch on the Raven Gates question.
Yeah, you should read it out.
Yeah.
It was the difference between the Raven and like Shakal Gates, which actually I'm not really.
It's supposed to be
familiar with.
Jackal Gates.
Jackal. Okay. Sorry. I was only off on that one because
The
I'm trying to
Shackle
think of
Gates.
I'm like Shackle Gates. Like, what?
I wasn't going to
Which ones
call
are
it out
those?
because I thought maybe that was a question you couldn't answer, and I was like, well, I'm not going to put him on the spot.
Well, no, like,
Okay.
I can.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
Sorry,
you,
Mark.
I didn't check these for.
It's okay.
It's all good.
It's all good.
So the difference between the Raven and the Jackal Gates is that the Jackal Gates are more so meant to kind of get you from point A to point B throughout the map, like
Jackal Gates are. Yeah.
like shortcutting ley lines, for example.
And you also need to be on your mount.
Yes, and you also need to be on your mount. The Raven Gates are more of a like lock and key sort of content type where you can use them to get to other places, but they're also used to enter into places you wouldn't have naturally been able to go to. Along with that, the Raven Gates will actually buff the character for a little bit of time when they're utilized. So when you run through one, you're going to be getting like a movement speed boost, and I think possibly some other additional things going on.
A big thing that differentiates them from other, get from point A to point B things that we've done in the past is when you open them for everyone for a period of time. So there's this thing where you can help out other players in the map. Right, like especially when they're like a key moment, right? You could be like, "Hey, I open up this portal and everyone can go through," and you get to be that person.
And to thank you, Connor, for actually mentioning that. I mentioned that earlier. Another thing to touch on is that like for the rooms that they take you into that you wouldn't usually be able to access, there are special Raven Gates that are always turned on because they just have ever flowing power. And those were built so that way players who go into those rooms that do not have the mastery have a way back out.
Yeah, they don't get trapped forever.
Stuck inside those
Yikes.
rooms.
I would have.
Yeah.
I just imagine going in there and there's like 50 people being like, "Let us out!
Let us out! I have no money. I can't wait for it.
You're just begging your guildmates to like sing you 50 silver, please. Does anybody have that last question? Because as a giant Guild Wars 1 nerd, I love that question.
It's like if you look at the map, I think it's like the edge of the giant.
Okay, so the question is the frozen lake the same lake that Jorah and Svanir went to when they got cursed?
I honestly cannot. I don't want to have narrative like kick in the door and tell me that I'm wrong. Maybe. I think so.
It is Drakkar Lake, and Drakkar is inside that lake.
Yeah,
We're interacting
it seems
with Drakkar from Drakkar
Yeah,
Lake.
I am pretty sure.
That is.
But
Sorry for calling it out. Then I'm sorry, narrative.
No, it's
I apologize.
I mean, like not like each of us has our wheelhouse, and not all of us know everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is,
I mean,
that is very true.
I am 90% sure, but also like I don't know forever. Like this is the exact same link,
Exactly.
right? Like,
And then it's like actually it cuts off over there on this imaginary line that we drew on the map.
It's not nice to make fun of our narrative team like that.
No, I'm saying in general.
I know. I'm sorry, narrative. We love you.
We do love you.
Okay, are we good?
I think so.
yeah.
If there are any more questions.
Yep. If there are any more questions, speak now for Everald Peace because we are wrapping up because we don't want to give too much away. There are so many things we want to tell you guys, and this is hard. But 3.5 more days. Mm-hmm. We're so close, and everybody gets to play the stuff that you guys have been working on so hard, and all of your teams.
And we definitely tried a bunch of new fun things with this episode, and just because this is a continuation of another map doesn't mean that it's like just super, super small. Like, we have tried our best to include as much content as we can to make it feel like a full episodic experience, and we hope that, we nailed that for our players.
You guys have been working super hard. We're excited to get you all in and play it. Let us know what you think, and we will talk about a whole bunch more on next week's Guild Chat. So, thank you all.
Awesome.
Good luck next Tuesday.
Thank you.
You all have fun next Tuesday. If you have not unlocked episode 1 yet, log in, do that before next Tuesday, and we will see you in game. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.